Welcome to this tutorial on using Molab notebooks. And in this tutorial, we're basically just going to introduce what they are. So if you started at the SC103N course website, you've likely already clicked through to that. If not, you can just search for Marimo Molab. Marimo is the name of the notebook. Molab will be the hosting service that we're using by the company that wrote Marimo. You want to go to molab.marimo.io. That should be the first result probably in any search. So if you click on that, it'll take you to this home page. We don't need any of the things on the bottom, but there's information here if you'd like to read about it. Instead, let's just start a new notebook. It's going to prompt you to register if you already haven't. And if you have, then, or once you have and you click through, you'll be greeted with something that looks like this. What you have when you're looking at this in the middle is the notebook functionality. This is where code will go eventually, although we're not really going to do anything with it in this tutorial. We're just getting oriented to the UI elements. Up here at the top, you have the name of the notebook. So the first thing we're going to do is rename this. So let's just click on this and give it a name that is your first name, your last name's first notebook. So that is me, Benjamin Lears. Got to spell my name right. It's Benjamin Lears' first notebook. And now it's renamed. Moving down to understand the UI, what we have in the very far right that we're not going to use is some additional settings. We don't need it for this particular tutorial. And then on the left-hand side, there's a whole series of different functionalities that we can access. For instance, we have the ability to view files. This notebook.py is the notebook that we see over here on the right. The PyProject toml is a way to specify some of the settings for how this notebook's going to behave. We will eventually use those in this course, but for right now, we're not going to. Down below that, we have variables. We haven't yet made variables in this notebook. We haven't created any code, and so nothing will show up here. We'll come back to that when we start running code. Below that are data sources. We're not going to interface with databases, and so we're not going to use this in this particular course at all, but if you're comfortable with interfacing with databases, that's fine. Dependencies, again, we haven't really written any code, but it will give us a map of what's going on over here on the right, and we'll come back to that once we start writing real code. Then under here, we have managing packages. We're not going to do anything with this yet either. But let's just say that packages are a little bit like ways to extend the Python that we're going to be using. So Python has a set of basic behaviors, and you can add packages in order to increase those behaviors or add to them. Below that, we have an outline. Again, the outline has to do with a notebook, which we haven't done anything with. And then below that is chat with AI. We're going to come back to this at the end of the video because this is what we're actually going to use in this particular video. Below that, we have live docs. These are documentations for different behaviors in the code over here. So again, as we eventually start to generate code, we'll see things appear in the live docs. We have a notebook log. This would give us information about the output from this notebook or errors in running this notebook. Below that, we have tracing. It will give us information about sort of the performance of running this notebook when we again write code. Below that are snippets. Snippets are sort of reusable code that one could use to accomplish common tasks. So if you have something that, like, for instance, you wanted to add error bars to a matplotlib plot, you could click on this and it would give you snippets of code that you could use to do that. Now, in our course, we're not going to use these. Instead, we're going to learn to write our own because that will give us a little bit better understanding of the structure of data visualizations. And additionally, we're not even going to use matplotlib. We're going to use plotly. Now, you can use whatever you want, honestly. I'm agnostic about what you use to plot your data, but the instructions that I'm going to provide are going to be in plotly. Below that, we have secrets. These are ways to interface with either internal or external programs. We're not going to use them in this course. And then Scratchpad is a way to write and generate code that is going to behave a little differently than how it behaves over here on the right. And we'll come back to that probably in the next video. Okay, and then below that, you have feedback. So you can give some feedback to the Marimo team. to let them know what you like or dislike. And I think it's a pretty good idea as you move through this course, if you have something you want to let them know, to do so, because this is under active development and they really are looking to see how people use this and what they like and what they don't like. And I think it's a great tool, and just letting them know whether you like it or not is always nice. Okay, so let's go back and do chat with AI. Included inside the Molab interface is a prompt to interact with an AI agent. Now within this interface, you have several different options. So the default is Molab, and we'll come back to that. But if I click on here, you can interface with Cloud, you can interface with DeepSeek, with Gemini, with GPTs, all right? And so you have many options to choose from. I'm going to recommend that for now, at least, you stick with Molab. And you can just type any sort of prompt in here like you normally would to get feedback about something. And so let's just ask, why use Molab? What is the difference between the Molab AI and other AIs like GPT? Why should I use Molab AI? Let's see what it says. Again, it's just a pretty typical interface for an LLM. So it's going to give us an answer. And so it's going to tell us that basically the Marimo AI is aware of how this Marimo notebook is going to work, probably more so than a lot of other AIs. And so because of that, this is something that's going to be nice when you're new to Marimo to understand how you should and should not work with it. And so you can read all this if you want. I scroll down, but you can also just ask it any old LLM question that you want, like, why do tigers exist? I don't know. We can see what it says. Now, one thing that's interesting about this AI is that it's going to be persistent across all of your notebooks. And so here, right, you can ask it totally general questions. It doesn't have to be about this. And so this is a nice interface to these different LLMs. As I was saying, this is persistent across all your notebooks. So if I went and created a new notebook, this chat would appear there. If I wanted a new chat, I can always click here and I'll get a new chat. The old chat's gone, although we can go here and see those chats, but it's just not displayed. And so this is a way that you can interface back and forth between these two. And so also, if you're here to complete the assignment for SC103N, all you really need to do is have one of these questions that you asked and the answer and your name here, and then to take a screenshot of this so that I can see that you have completed that. And with that, that's our introduction to the Molab notebook, so that I know you know how to make a notebook and how to interface with AI when we start running into problems as you code. And that's all.